Welcome to FYI. I'm Barry ZeVAN, and my guest on this show is a young man named Joe Woerly. And you remember that name because Joe, I think, is going to be very famous very soon. And he also, for those of us of a certain age who, not myself, but some people in my age category, 110, we, not really, 81, they demean millennials, and they say, oh, anybody, under age 30 or in their 30s or whatever, they don't have any brains. Well, guess what? First of all, welcome, Joe.
Thanks, Barry.
Great to see you.
Awesome, appreciate it. Yeah.
Joe has invented something terrific. We met in a restaurant, but I want to use an example first of young people. George Gershwin, the composer, one of the great composers of all time, composed most of his great music, including Rhapsody in Blue, in his 20s. Now, there's a shocker, I think, for a lot of people who don't know of all these fantastic pieces that he wrote. And so, don't ever judge by age.
Exactly.
Joe, I met in a restaurant in Forest Lake, Minnesota, and the reason we say Minnesota is this is seen on YouTube all over the world.
Yeah.
And so, but of course we're doing it from CCX Media here in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, part of the Twin Cities. And so I met Joe in a restaurant, and I said, he said, hey, I created something. Oh, really? Well, that's good. So it turns out to be a product called VINO COCOA, and it's wine-flavored infused chocolate. Now, we've given the punchline here, but I want to see how this all began for you. You're a native of Jacksonville, Florida.
That's right.
So guide us from Jacksonville to VINO COCOA.
Very cool, very well. Well, the process of VINO COCOA has been quite a long one, quite honestly. I've been doing this steadily for 3 years now, like fully dedicated to it. But the idea happened actually 10 years ago when I was living in Jacksonville, Florida. And throughout my entire 20s, I had worked in music and worked as a sound engineer, and actually worked in lots of clubs, and actually owned my own music venue for a while back in Florida. And 10 years ago is like when the recession hit, and it caused a lot of business to go out, a lot of businesses to go out of business, and my club was one of them. And when you have touring bands that are paying for gas and prices go up and people don't have money to go out, our club shut down, and I lost all my jobs working in music after working in music from the time I was 21 till I was 28, and so it was like 7 full years of working in music every day, and it was a great part of time of my life. But then I came up with this idea when I needed a job more than anything, and it almost seemed easier to start a business than to get a job, because even to get a restaurant job during the recession, you'd be lucky. I would wait in lines for a restaurant job, waiting behind people who gone to college and we're all corporate dressed, and they're in a restaurant and trying to get a job, and whereas they lost their job somewhere else. So it was really hard to even get a simple job. So I was like, I need to come up with a product, come up with a business idea, or do something. So I had a friend, her name is Mia, and we met in high school, and I would go to her family's house every Thanksgiving and Christmas, and they're from Brazil, so they had amazing Brazilian food every holiday. And her mom was a fantastic cook, and she needed a job as well. And when I needed a job, I knew someone else needed a job, and I was like, why don't we come up with chocolate products? And I was like, I'll help market it and sell it, put it together. You're my talent, you're my chef. Let's create something together. So, the idea came out, out of desperation, and it also came out of wanting to help somebody else too. Like my friend's mom, her name is Liv, and so she's a really great lady. But I presented the idea. I was like, hey, you make great desserts, and every time I come over for dinner, I bring wine over, and it's just like, why don't we put our stuff together, make some wine chocolate, sell it to stores throughout, Florida and our city and everything. And at the time, she didn't really, even though she's a great chef, she didn't want to do it. She was like, I don't know too much about chocolate, even though your misconception is beyond, your opinion's just too much for me, I guess. But she's still a great chef. I was like, I wanted her to work with me. So I was like, okay, it's not in the world, but I had the idea still. I ended up getting a job back in music again, saved up my money, and then I moved to Dallas, Texas, and hoping for a better life, because bigger city, more opportunity, and it was still the recession time. So I moved to Dallas, Texas, and started working, normal jobs again, like working in a restaurant. And but when I worked in Dallas, Texas, though, that's where I met my first two mentors for VINO COCOA. I took one of the worst jobs. I don't know. I'm not. I went to college too and took some classes, but I don't use my college for any kind of to get a real corporate job, I guess. But it was the mentors who helped me get what I needed to do. And I took one of the worst jobs in the world just to meet one guy, my first mentor, who was a retired food. He produced food and sold pickles to restaurants and stuff like that. So his name is Steve, and I got a job working with him, and I would just try to be his best friend every day just to learn more from him. And he was the guy who got me started with, how to UPC codes to, getting insurance and just all the groundwork to getting a food product done, which, when I first had the idea, I had no idea. I was just like, let's just make it and sell it. It was just that simple. But I was very naive, but I'm learning more as I go, of course. But Steve was my first mentor, and he taught me the ropes of how to get things going. I eventually became friends with my second mentor, who was a chocolatier, and he told me exactly how to make the product. And I'm not a chocolatier at all, but I learned how to, since then I've learned how to temper chocolate, create chocolate, and I took the skills that my second mentor gave me to create to actually create my product. And so this is while I was still living in Dallas, and I got busy again because some music opportunities came about, and I went to Europe for a while and traveled, throughout Europe with some musicians, and went to Russia as well, and was pretty busy, and I worked in television as well. So in that time in Dallas, but I moved back to Florida, and I got my third mentor. And mentors are great, by the way. I keep bringing up mentors, but it's like you can't learn this stuff in school. That's the thing. So, people who have already done it and been there, they can tell you everything what to do. So I got a third mentor who is a chocolatier. His name is Sweet Pete, and he actually he was actually on the show The Prophet, and his investor is Marcus Lemonis, it's very cool to have him as an advisor in our circle of chocolates and my business. And so Sweet Pete, who's a fascinating guy, I still talk to him whenever I have questions, and he, the great thing about mentors is, you talk to them maybe once or twice a year, but they'll give you so much information in an hour on the phone, and you can be set for the next year with a game plan on what to do. So Sweet Pete actually made my first prototype. He has his own chocolate factory in Springfield of Jacksonville, Florida, and so it's actually a very successful chocolate business too now. And so after he made my first prototype, I got busy again in music again, and so traveled around the United States, went to New York to LA probably 5 times in the same year traveling, and the entire time while I was on the road, I would tell everyone I worked with, I was like, I'm going to start this wine chocolate business. It was like everyone knew I worked with, just like, what are you going to do when you get done touring with our band? I was like, I'm going to go start a chocolate business. And I ended up in Minnesota I had a girlfriend for a while up here, so that's why I'm still here. And so, but anyhow, a lot of things happened. I've been here for 4 years now. My first job in Minnesota, I was working at a food manufacturing facility in North Branch. It was called Harvest Granola, and it was a warehouse where we make granola bars by the pallets, and we would sell them. So it was cool to actually see a production facility of what it takes to actually make a food product, and here I am making my stuff in the kitchens and commercial kitchens, stuff like that. But when you go big time, you kind of have your own factory, and it's very, I'm not gonna say it is a simple process, but it isn't, because you're doing the same thing 10,000 times in one day. So as long as you get good at it, making granola bars or whatever, chocolates in this case, it's there's a lot of it is in the upfront work as far as the recipe and the, like doing the research. And I mean, that took a long time just to develop the product. But once you have the recipe and the designs and everything else, I mean, the designs took me, I mean, when I made these alone, just looking at colors, I spent 12 hours a day just looking at colors, just like, what do I want this wrapper to look like? And so, I mean, there is a lot that goes in the back end. So then before you even present the product to the world, I mean, there's hundreds of just countless hours just like that you just do because you love it, and it's not, you don't get paid to do your research, you don't get paid to do your recipes because you're doing it yourself, but it's because you love doing it, you just keep rocking it out. And so, so I got a job working at a granola bar factory, and I started picking the brain of my production manager, who is technically my fourth mentor now. And so I would pick her brain, like, what do I do? How do I source ingredients and stuff like that? And she told me how to source ingredients. And like when I was doing my recipe testing, I had called chocolate companies from all over the world, whether it was they could be in Africa or Cuba, Ecuador. I mean, I had 50 pounds of chocolate in my house at any given time, just like recipe testing in my own kitchen, and the chocolate I didn't use, I would put it on popcorn, but just like, so it's just like, it didn't go to waste, trust me. But I mean, who can say they have 50 pounds of chocolate in their house? I mean, no one does that. So right. I still have remnants of chocolate from that recipe testing too. But anyhow, after I got my recipe done, I had a prototype, and I had just little squares, like little 1-inch squares. And I went around to little shops in my town of North Branch, and the mayor of North Branch is actually one of our friends too, so she loves my product. But after she saw my products in North Branch, she put it on her Facebook and everything, and she was like, check out what's going on in North Branch. So North Branch is a really small town, 10,000 people, so I mean, to have something like this is pretty cool. So I went around, sent out some samples, and came back a couple weeks later, check on the samples, and like one of the stores, the owner was like, oh, I ate them all, so I can't really pay you for it. So she did pay for them. She just like, I didn't charge, so I'll just pay you out of my own pocket. So, but all the stores in North Branch had sold them or got rid of them, and everyone liked it. So okay, cool. So I made my first full bar, and with my first product design. This is actually my third product design. I've done the wrapping 3 different times already. But my first design was, just fairly similar, but it was something I did by myself. So it wasn't as good as a graphic designer, but when you're an entrepreneur, you have to do everything yourself. You have to be, the jack of all trades. Like you have to make stuff work. And it's like, I don't have $100 to pay a graphic designer, to do this for me, and I'll figure it out myself. So I mean, some fonts and some images, and redo again. Just continue to create the bar.
Not to interrupt.
Sure.
The first time I saw these bars, and I think we have graphic showing of the bars, they're so professional looking. I mean, it's as though you've been in business forever. Wow. And it's true.
Thank you.
I'm not blowing smoke here. It's really true. And your talents are multi-talents, because you know what will appeal to a certain group. So now these are in stores in Minnesota and also at Macy's in Chicago?
Correct, that's right. And so I've been selling these bars for a full year. Just taking another step back though, from working in North Branch in the granola bar factory, I did, after I sold these around town, I did my first Kickstarter. And for anyone who doesn't know, like Kickstarter is like a crowdfunding platform, an online platform where small startup businesses, anyone can make a pledge or make a donation, or you basically do pre-sales. So I mean, it's not a handout type thing, but it's like, hey, I want to pre-sell these chocolate bars, and my pre-sale was actually, I'm going to sell 3 bars, all 3 of these flavors, for $50. And I raised, and my campaign was successful, and only 10% of Kickstarter campaigns are successful. So I mean, to be in that 10% of success is a pretty good thing to think about. And so it really says a lot about like what people want as far as like new products and like inventions and innovations and stuff like that. And so I did my first Kickstarter, and I raised enough money to like do my first production run and get some real designs made. But yeah, going back to like even talking about like, you have to know a little bit about everything. So I mean, I went to art school. Like, I took a lot of art classes in high school and college, and I sold paintings while I was in college too. So I mean, and not to even like this, I have a little bit of a grudge too. But like, because my high school teacher, like back in high school, like I wanted to put my art in the art show, high school art show. She told me my art was not good enough for the art show. And ever since then, I've always had, just like that in the back of my mind, just a little bit more push of a grudge, just to keep going a little harder and faster and a little bit better. And like, I'll show you, So
That's
now
wonderful.
my art's selling in Macy's. So I mean, that's what, nice little accomplishment.
Oh,
I think.
absolutely. Yeah, there are a lot of people out there who have told people that they would never make it and that they were no good at this and no good at that.
Yeah.
Two of them are Clint Eastwood and Burt Reynolds,
Wow.
who were told they would never make it in the business.
Yeah.
Well, we forget that,
Right.
of course.
And they showed them.
Also, speaking of the music business, not to digress away from VINO
Sure.
COCOA for a moment, but your brother is actually a sound tech for John Legend.
Yeah, well, he's a drum tech for John.
Drum
Legend.
tech, okay.
I used to do sound, but my brother, we're a little musician family. So I mean, I was a sound engineer. I play guitar as well, and my brother, he plays drums. And so he actually, when he was young and developing, he actually would build drum sets and so he's multi-talented. So like, he was a great drummer. He played in a lot of local bands that got really good, reputations. But he built drum sets from scratch, and now he's a drum tech for one of the biggest, Grammy winners and musicians in the world,
Yeah,
John Legend.
And my friend Quincy Jones was John Legend's. John Legend was his protege, and of
Wow.
course Quincy discovered John.
Yeah.
And one thing I do like, not to digress too much, all the stories I've seen about John and read about, and you can even see when he does television interviews, he's a very humble person, and he really cares about people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy. And from what I've heard, my brother, he's worked with lots of musicians, from the Jonas Brothers to like Miley Cyrus and all these other people, but he says John Legend's one of the nicest people you could ever meet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't forget his roots.
Yeah.
Didn't forget his roots. It's wonderful. So back to VINO COCOA. It actually boggles my mind that you have 50 pounds of cocoa. Do you have it in your house or your apartment or whatever?
Yeah, it was stashed away in the closet, in the kitchen, anywhere I can find a spot for it, really, because under my bed. So I mean, 50 pounds of chocolate is quite a bit. So I mean, you need a lot of space.
Now, do we, forgive my ignorance, do we actually produce cocoa here in the United States, or is it mostly all from either South America or Africa or whatever?
Yeah, it's mostly other countries. Mostly Africa is, one of them, and you need a really good tropical climate for cocoa to grow, and it's just like and from doing my recipe testing, from testing chocolate from whether Africa, like Cuba and Ecuador, and like every country, could find Italy, like you can tell the difference in the chocolate, like amazing. You can tell, like this one has a little more of a, the soil has a lot, you can feel this, you can kind of taste it in the chocolate itself. So even if it's like organic chocolate or whatever, but yeah, our chocolate, VINO COCOA is like, it's made in a tropical climate where it's got like really fruity notes already to begin with. So I mean, and whether it's Africa or like it's a little bit more, the chocolate's a little more dry, it's a little more ground or earthy, I guess you can say, has more earthy taste. And so, but like, I get mine from a more tropical climate, so it's a little more smooth and it's a little more silky. And the notes are, like, there's already fruity notes already in the chocolate, before I even start. And so like, and I have like my wine flavors, they're custom made for me. I have a flavor that makes a flavor company that makes some custom flavors for me. And they're a really prestigious company as well. So, but this flavor company to make these flavors for me is a pretty great thing, because they're a very well-known company that if I said who they are, people know who they are. So, but my flavors are exclusive. They're for me. They made them just for me, and I tell them what flavors I want. And we have some new flavors on the way. And right now, I have a Cabernet flavored dark chocolate, and that was my first flavor. And then after I made my first bars, I sent them to my flavor company. I was like, hey, this is what I'm doing with your flavors, with your products. It's like, can you make me more flavors? And this company, they're a big, big, big company, and to work with me, who's just a small, little guy, just like, I got a product I want to make, and they went out of their way to make these flavors for me. So for them to actually see the future in this business as well, this is a great thing. So
wonderful.
Yeah. So we right now have a Cabernet dark chocolate, and there's also a Merlot dark chocolate, and then I have a Chardonnay white chocolate. I have some new flavors coming up. And these are my 3 main flavors, which I brought out to to the marketplace last year, and so I have my 4th flavor coming up, which I'll probably introduce starting next month. Once the weather cools down a little bit, and it's a little more timely. For the fall, people are more into more gifts and stuff like that. So I'm gonna have a sangria flavored dark chocolate coming out, and they're all non-alcoholic as well. So I mean, it's really great to be sold in stores because whether they get shoplifted, the kid takes them or whatever, that's fine. There's no alcohol in my products, but the flavoring, is for anyone who's like really, there's a lot of foodies in there, but the flavoring is like less than 1% of the ingredients. So I mean, my bar is 99% organic, and so it meets those standards of an organic product as well.
For those of us still not hip to what organic means, what's the difference between organic and non-organic?
All right. Well, organic is basically, when you grow food or plants or anything, farmers tend to use pesticides or fertilizers to help make their food grow. And there's even GMOs out there, which are seeds, which are modified to grow without pesticides, but they still are, changed a little bit differently. But, cocoa is, another plant that's highly fertilized and pesticides, and that's for all foods that are non-organic. Like you can, whether it's lettuce or even carrots at a grocery store, if it's not organic, that has pesticides on it, and you put it in your mouth, and now you have pesticides in your body. So I mean, people don't really think of it that way because they just see the surface. But I mean, your vegetables and whatever, if it's not organic, it's been sprayed with pesticides and fertilizer. And it's not good for your body, obviously, because if it's great for you, we would just do it anyway. But organic, is grown naturally, and there's lots of benefits to having organic food because, well, for one, it tastes better. I mean, and it's healthier too. So I mean, if you've ever had, people who are not into fruits and vegetables, if you ever had an organic apple compared to a mushy non-organic apple. I mean, an organic apple is like crisp, it's clean, and it's delicious, and has vibrant flavors, but a non-organic apple is like usually mushy, they're bland, they have no flavor, and it's not really, nice to eat. So I mean, the organic and non-organic is a huge night and day type of thing. So to have organic chocolate is just like a whole another level of flavor for the new chocolate people out there that love chocolate.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So you would be maybe a little, not even a little bit, maybe you are unique in the fact that your chocolate is organic. I don't see any bars in stores saying organic chocolate. Is that, am I correct in that?
Not many are. There are some chocolates out there, but they're far and few between, It's just like if you were to go down the chocolate aisle, there might be one brand out of like 20 on the shelf or whatever. So I mean, it's not like, a huge thing as far as, chocolate goes. But I mean, it's just like if you were to go to the store, if you go down the raisin aisle, there's 10 different brands of raisins, but there's only one little small section of organic raisins and one little shelf on the bottom. So, so it's, but people do seek out organic foods, of course. A lot of people are getting hip to that, and, they know that organic's better for you. It's just, and fertilizers and other pesticides might lead to harmful illnesses like cancer or whatever. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to, say that for sure. But, it's just like, anything that's non-organic that you put in your body, your body is an organic, being. So, I mean, it has to have organic things. So when you put non-organic food in your body, it definitely feels it, even though you don't feel it right away. But I mean, non-organic food can lead to illness if possible. But there's lots of, let's get off the subject a little bit. But anyways, yeah, organic food is just the way to go. I mean, you know, it's a little bit more pricier for organic food, but the taste is amazing. It's better for you, and you enjoy it a lot more. And that's really the whole point of eating chocolate, is to enjoy it.
I'm amazed you with what you've created. I envision this giant factory making all these bars, etc., and it's not really that big right now.
We're not really that big right now. You know, for being a small startup, in order to even, to start a factory and have millions of bucks and invest in all this equipment that to start a building from scratch is it's a huge, arduous thing. And so, it's really not the fastest way to go. And so, but I'm a big Shark Tank fan. Anyone who's watched Shark Tank or whatever, anyone that watches Shark Tank and has a food, all the contestants come on that have food products. Every shark will agree that it's best to go through what's called a co-packer. And a co-packer is basically a facility that's already established, and there's co-packers. It's basically a manufacturer, and so there's lots of manufacturers that we would have a chocolate bar factory make our chocolates for us. And so or whether it's anything, whether you're selling pickles, if you have pickles, you send your pickles to a co-packer and they manufacture it. But that's what a co-packer does. They're a facility that has maybe dozens of clients that they make products for, and then they distribute it for you. And so instead of me having to actually have millions and millions of dollars for a building and equipment and all this other stuff, I would just have a co-packer manufacturer make it for me. And so all the sharks on Shark Tank agree, the co-packer is the way to go. But that was already my plan before I even watched Shark Tank that much. But anyways, because I already know. So, but yeah, and I worked in a co-packer. The granola bar place I worked at was a co-packer. We not only made our own brand, but we would have clients come to us, hey, I have a marshmallow granola bar I want to make, or whatever, peanut butter chocolate bar, or peanut butter granola bar I want to make. So we would co-pack for them as well. So, we had our own products and we would sell them. So working in North Branch in that food facility, really let me see how things go. And, I eventually, would learn how to make contracts and NDA agreements and stuff like that just by working in that facility. So now when I go to my manufacturers, I know all about non-disclosure agreements, and I know all about contracts, and I know what they can expect, whether they want a year agreement or 2-year agreement. And so, there's a lot goes into it. So I will not be investing in my own manufacturing facility as much as I would want to. That'd be great. But the most smartest way to go would be just to have a manufacturer make it for us. And in the long run, if business is going well and I can afford it, then maybe we will have our own factory.
That's wonderful. We only have about 30 seconds here, but with all your travels overseas, are you going to introduce it to other countries?
Yeah, most definitely. I actually have a distributor in Europe that's ready to go in the Netherlands, and they actually purchased some products earlier this year, and just to test it out, see how it goes. And they gave me some suggestions as far as in Europe they can't really have organic on the label, because there's a lot of standards if you want to have organic on your label. So, but my product can get away with that. So, but yeah, I'll be in Europe later on this year. That's the plan, and specifically the Netherlands.
That's wonderful. I cannot wait. As I said at the beginning, people are going to know your name.
Yeah, thanks.
Big time. And I can't thank you enough, Joe.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me here, of course. And this is so amazing.
My pleasure, my honor.
All right.
And now shameless plug time. My book is available on Amazon. It's not the kind of book you think it is. It's a history book, and people who have told me their stories. So it's on Amazon. See you next time.